coronavirus is already, as we know, having a devastating impact on small and medium-sized businesses. Business incubator Property Point has conducted a study on its impact. And for more on this, I'm joined in the studio by Shawn Theunissen, and he is the Property Point's founder. Thank you for your time this afternoon, Shawn. Let's look at the impact of COVID-19 on small and medium-sized enterprises. Give us some examples of how the virus has impacted them.
Good afternoon, Tommy, and good afternoon to the listeners as well. So I think one of the biggest challenges that we find is that the impact for small businesses has been immediate. From the study that we've done over the past 2 weeks, one of the key factors that we're seeing is cash flow management. We're finding that a lot of businesses are really focusing on making sure that they can bring that cash flow in. They've already had a bit of an extended payment feedback from some of their suppliers. I think what we're also seeing specifically in the construction space, where small businesses have been able to go out and set up site already, they have to clear site. So that cost has not been factored into those project costs. I think another precautionary element which is quite key during this time is health and safety. But the cost of health and safety has also dramatically increased for the small businesses. And from a supply chain perspective, they've not necessarily been given clear directives in terms of is work that has been in the pipeline, will it continue? So really being able to forecast in terms of where those opportunities and business development cycles were at is having a massive increase. So I think that also from the feedback that we're getting from small businesses, that they are definitely welcoming the relief that government has set on the table, but they just want to be able to get a sense around the practical application and implementation of the relief.
And perhaps let's talk about this 3 billion rand that the IDC has put in place. How exactly is that going to be allocated? Who will qualify?
Yes, and so those are the type of details that we're still looking for from government. So typically what we've seen from all the relief programs, whether it's the IDC loan or the Small Business Development Fund that's been set aside, or even the Oppenheimer and Rupert billion that has been set aside, is that we need the practical information that needs to be disseminated to small business. How are they going to be able to access this? Even with the Small Business Development Fund, the 500 million, the website's already been set up, but we're getting feedback from small businesses that they're not able to get their applications through, or the system's lagging. So I think that the aim is really to say that as we've put these remedial actions in place, how are we operationalizing it, and do we have the capacity, say from a government perspective, to roll this out? From a Property Point perspective, we see ourselves as a partner to be able to also work with government and public and private sector to be able to facilitate these type of information flow to small businesses.
One thing that was highlighted is that businesses have to, be compliant, and the losses that they will be incurring ought to be losses that are directly related to COVID-19. So you cannot, just because you've been having a bad trading season, now come and say you want to claim because of COVID-19. So those are some of the measures that government has put in place. But when are the payouts going to start? It is almost the end of the month already. Businesses such as restaurants and nightclubs yes. already have been affected, and some may not be able to pay their staff or even be able to pay all their rentals come the end, perhaps even of this very month.
And that's the challenge around the cash flow issues that businesses are facing. I think what we need to also realize is that we were actually in an economic recession already as we went into the COVID-19 challenge. So small businesses already have been on the back foot. I think we want to be able to see those practical examples coming through of payment cycles being introduced for the businesses, the disbursement of funds taking place. As much as we've had government being able to be proactive in communicating it, it's those how-to steps that we need to get into place now.
And how soon are you expecting those how-to steps? Were you expecting them today?
Ideally, we needed them as soon as possible. So in the President's first address, he had said that more details would be forthcoming on the 24th, which in his address he did provide more details. But it's not enough for the man on the street. So one of the key factors as an incubator ourselves, we're working with our partners like CEDA, which is the government's agency, to be able to make sure that we disseminate this information through to businesses. But the details is important because we've given a bit of a lifeline to a small business now, but how do they practically apply it in the situation? And so we want to be able to advocate for government to put those practical steps in place and utilize the network of incubators in the country and support services for small businesses to effectively disseminate this information and make it more practical.
Let's talk about the workers now. There was mention made of the unemployment fund. In instances where small businesses and medium-sized businesses have not been compliant and have not been contributing and paying over that UIF to the government, what then?
Yeah, I think in those cases what the messaging is that those businesses would not be able to apply for the relief that is put in place. So both the temporary employment relief fund as well as the UIF fund that the President alluded to will be going to those small businesses that are compliant. The biggest challenge that we have is that we have a large pool of not compliant or informal businesses that's not going to be able to access this relief. So I think part of the key driver as well from a government perspective to say how does the vendor on the street tap into the relief that's there? How does the informal sector? The President in his address did allude to the fact that township economies will also be looked after. Typically, we're hoping that there's more detail around those businesses coming out of a township setting or an informal setting.
Yes, we did hear Minister Ntshavheni say that spaza shops, those that are licensed, will get some sort of relief, and that the funding really is only for South African companies or companies with a significant South African, shareholder.
70% South African businesses.
And what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's a global crisis, and the effect of it on the businesses, even so we know that we have a lot of foreign-based businesses operating in the townships as well. Some of them are employing South Africans, some of them are not. I guess the question is the flow over of that impact. Will it still affect us as a country? The answer is yes. So we should be trying to create as broader pool of assistance for businesses out there as general. And it's a trying time, and I do see that as the impact increases, specifically the economic impact, there needs to be a little bit of flexibility from government to be able to address those nuances, such as, for instance, foreign-based businesses. This is not a South African crisis. We're sitting in a global crisis. So hopefully those businesses are able to tap into broader relief.
Are you confident that there is enough flow of communication? Do businesses know where to go in order to find the resources and the information that they need to find? Because I suspect not.
I totally agree with you, Tommy. There's not enough information flowing. We're having the high-level details coming through, and the presidency has been great in terms of communicating that, at the ministerial level, great at communicating that. But the how-to is a key factor. One of our key focuses as a support program for small businesses through Property Point is to be able to disseminate that information as well. So we're trying to really engage our partners in government, in the private sector, to get more details and really let that flow through. One of the things that we're doing, for instance, tomorrow evening we're hosting a webinar through another program, Entrepreneurship to the Point, to give those expert insights to small businesses. And during this time, we need to over-communicate and really focus on the need that small business has. A lot of them don't have the means to really put these things in place quickly.
And we'll leave it at that for today. I think we can certainly err on the side of over-communicating, because that's exactly what we're needing during this time. Thank you so much, Shawn.
Thank you.
That's Shawn Theunissen, their Property Point's founder.